Hey everybody, so we're here. It's Fentanyl Friday with Jason. How are you?
Great.
Thanks for being
Yeah. No,
here.
I'm excited to talk with you more about fentanyl and
Yeah, I'm glad we're
Fentanyl
having this
Friday.
conversation
Yeah, absolutely.
because, like I preach all the time, it's a conversation that needs to be had more frequently, daily, all the time.
Yes.
So I just want to kind of pick your brain,
Yeah.
get your opinions on some things from your own experience. What age, in your opinion, as a father,
Yeah.
is appropriate to start talking to your kids about fentanyl and like just drugs in general?
Yeah. It's changed so much from when I was using versus what's out there now. Just like social media didn't exist. Now it
Yeah.
exists. It is so, and everybody's like, these kids are getting exposed to it so early because of social media. They're learning about it. It's on TV. It's illegal in a lot of places, not fentanyl, but drugs in general are starting to become legal in a lot of places. I mean, elementary school.
Yeah.
Like at a real conversations, not the um, drugs are bad conversations that I
Mm-hmm.
had when I was in school, but
The dare.
yeah, the Dare program,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
real conversations around
Mm.
what's out there and what the risks are, and you know what you don't know, like what you might be taking, might have all this license.
Yeah.
Like my kids don't realize they could smoke a joint and die
Mm-hmm.
because fentanyl's laced in it. It's
Yeah.
like getting so prevalent now that we have to have real conversations with them, even as parents, uncomfortable conversations of if you're going to do this, do it safely.
Mm.
Like, of course, as a dad with two teenage girls and a son that's an adult now, I want to be like, stay away from it. Don't do it. Don't
Perfect world. Yes.
like,
Just don't do
yes,
it.
no sex, no
Right.
drugs, no. But the reality is, all
Yeah.
of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I had a shift in my dad parenting,
Mm-hmm.
just through some things that happened with my kids as they were growing up, and I made a like conscious switch that I want my kids to experience life. I want them to
Yeah.
live. It's for me. I was that dad that was like, "Oh, a boy wants to meet you. That means I have to have a shotgun at the door."
Yeah.
Now I want to meet them. I want to get to know the boys.
Yeah.
I want them to experience loving a boy, having a
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend, but that also means they're going to experience drinking, drugs, alcohol, parties,
Yeah.
and they need to be prepared for what they're going to come across when they're at these parties. They need to know
Yeah.
what the reality of it is.
I totally agree with you. Where do you live?
I live in Sun Valley, Idaho.
Okay.
So it's a
So,
small town.
yeah. So, do you see fentanyl out there in Idaho?
We're seeing it, especially in Boise, Idaho. We're seeing it
Mm-hmm.
more and more. Um, where I live in Sun Valley, Idaho, I'm not part of this classification, but it is one of like the most expensive zip codes in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
So there are a lot of prescription drugs there, a lot of drugs getting stolen out of the parents' medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
Um, you're seeing a lot of things laced with other things other than what they're supposed to be. So
Mm.
even in small town Sun Valley, Idaho, there's fentanyl arrests happening. It's in our little town, in our little community.
Yeah. And has the crime gotten worse?
Crime hasn't gotten worse,
Yeah.
but just the things that are happening at some of these parties, the things I'm hearing stories, of so and so overdosed or so and so had they like to call it a green out,
A green out.
instead of a blackout, green out because they
Really?
smoked too much pot, but the pot was laced with something, and so
Oh,
they
wow. I've
like,
never heard that.
so apparently there's something called a green out,
Okay.
and so I'm hearing more stories about these things happening to kids at these parties,
Yeah.
and it's just getting closer and closer. Usually, what happened, what all the cool stuff that happens in California we get it about 10 years later in Idaho.
Uh-huh.
Um, so does the bad stuff that happens. So we're starting to see some of that trickle into Idaho now, especially from Oregon, and we're
Yeah.
starting to see a lot more of it.
And is there awareness? I mean, are people talking about it out there? Is there
We're talking
campaigns?
about it in our house.
Yeah.
No, there's not campaigns around it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of like open communication around it. We were talking earlier before the show started. I have kits that I'm going to go put in my kids' glove boxes,
Narcan.
Narcan, so they
Yeah.
have, and tell them how to use it and tell them what it's for, just in case they're at a party that something somebody takes is laced, and I want them to have the ability to save somebody from
Yeah.
overdosing when they're out in the middle of the because most of the parties are out in the mountains with big bonfire.
Yeah, that's what it was like when I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, what are your views on fentanyl testing strips? You supportive of?
yeah. They're gonna. Yes, I am completely supportive of it. When I was using, there was nothing that was going to stop me from what I was doing. It did not matter
Yeah.
how what you tried to do. I wasn't going to be stopped. You couldn't get in my way. And that's the same for other people. If they're partying, they're going to find a way to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
I would prefer they have a way to make sure what they're doing is safe.
Yeah. Keep them alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think the fentanyl is getting into your town?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it gets in everywhere else, it's getting in through, because a lot of, we're not in Idaho, nothing's legal. Everything is. And so, right on the border of Oregon and Idaho, one of the largest pot shops for Oregon is on our border
Okay.
because 80% of it is people from Idaho going over
Going
there to
over.
buy.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of it's coming in from like these new
Uh-huh.
legal shops. Again, I haven't used for so long.
Yeah.
It's so different to me. Like, you can walk into a shop and pick out skunk bud of whatever you want.
Uh-huh.
My head tells me that means it's safe. I don't know if that's the case or not. Just because it's
Mhm.
coming from a shop, does that maybe you know?
No, it's well, I mean, you just don't know
Yeah,
anymore ever. And
yeah.
it's so scary. I know so sad, just tragic, heartbreaking. A woman, she recently lost her 13-year-old son. He hit a vape pen that was, from a store that you get that sort of stuff from. And he died, because it had fentanyl.
See,
And
that
so,
scares me to death because I
yeah.
would assume buy it from a store and a package means it's safe.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, and I'm sure a lot of times it is, but you just don't
Yeah.
know. You just don't know
Mm-mm.
anymore. Nothing is safe. Like recreationally using drugs,
Yeah.
it's not none of it's safe anymore. Um, do you know the statistics of how many people die every day from fentanyl?
I think the last one I heard it was like 100,000 last year died.
300 a day.
300 a day die from fentanyl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you really like just take that in for a second. 300 people a day, like if we put all those people in front of us every single day.
And it's so fast. Like
Yeah, and the
it's
numbers
one
are just
time.
growing. And there's some new, I can't, we'll have to have a follow-up
Yeah.
episode, but there's some new drugs that are coming out that's even stronger than fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're saying is going to be like the new thing. And that Narcan, they'd have to hit it 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 times to bring them
To bring them
back
back.
because it's so strong. These synthetic drugs that weren't around
No,
when
not at all.
we were younger,
No,
it's completely different.
like I had to be worried about my stuff being cut with like Clorox, not
Yeah.
horse tranquilizer, or it's a new level for sure that
Yeah.
our kids are having to deal.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the people using. You hear all the stories all the time of like an officer
Oh
accidentally coming in
yeah.
contact and having an overdose just because it touched his skin.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like that's scary.
Yeah. What do you think needs to happen?
I think we need to keep having conversations around it. The
Mm.
people that are out there doing, like my kids that are at parties need to be aware of what the risks are and have tools to be able to manage those risks when they come up. Like, of course, there's a whole political landscape around it that we can go down all sorts of rabbit
Rabbit
holes
holes.
of where
Yeah.
it's coming from and what conspiracy and why.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's here.
Yeah.
And my kids need to know about it so that way they can help their friends, who can then help their friends, and we can all protect each other.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the
So,
same way. Education,
yeah,
talking about it, because fortunately it's not going anywhere.
no, no.
Yeah.
And I live in we live in a nice, beautiful bubble where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a job as a parent to expose my kids to the real world outside of our bubble. And so I like when we travel, when we go to Florida, like I try to make sure we go to places where they can experience other environments and they can see the realities of what the rest of the world is somewhat dealing with
Mm.
outside of our bubble. And a lot of us, whether you're in Sun Valley, Idaho, or whether you're in Costa Mesa, we can still live in little
Yeah.
bubbles that are outside of our world. And so I really try to make sure I expose my kids to what else is out there and what people are dealing.
Yeah.
Because eventually it might find their way to them.
Yeah, it's so important,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people still have, this stigma
Oh yeah.
towards, drugs, especially hard drugs,
Mm-hmm.
mental health. I mean, lots of different things, but especially the harder drugs,
Mm-hmm.
methamphetamine, fentanyl, where it's just junkies.
Yeah.
Like, why are they doing that? And like I say, this is going to come knocking at their doorstep at some point, whether it's, a family member, a close friend, a coworker. I mean, this isn't just affecting these drug addict
No.
junkies. I mean, it's affecting lawyers and doctors
Mm-hmm.
and moms and housewives and children. It's
Yeah.
affecting everybody.
Yeah. You got they get put on their prescriptions and then they
Hmm.
have to come off the prescriptions and then they look for solutions
Yeah.
outside of their prescription. And then all of a sudden they're on heroin and fentanyl and
Yeah. I have a
don't know how you
guest.
got there.
I have a guest coming on right after this, and she's coming in from Vegas, and it's her first time speaking publicly about this. Her husband died from
Hmm.
a fentanyl overdose, 3 children, and the one son found him on their couch. She came downstairs, and he'd been gone for a few hours already through the night. But yeah, back injury,
Yeah.
opiates,
Mhm.
needed more. Go to like it's like this heartbreaking classic tale.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to be having this conversation. I'm glad you're here having this conversation and
Yeah.
that you recover out loud. You've got sober gangster. Um, and it's just like we just have to bring awareness. And
Yeah.
it does start with our children.
Yeah.
We're both parents and just having that conversation. Please, if you have kids, have the conversation. They are
Yes.
not too young, and just having us be open about what we've gone through and what's going on out there, taking them outside their bubble,
Yeah.
experiencing things, seeing the world, and what's going on. It definitely help.
Well, and there are all of these kits out there to help prevent overdose. You can find them all over the
Yeah.
place.
I have a bag at home, probably
Yeah.
has like 700 in it.
Yeah. You can get
Yeah.
them free. Just
Yep.
throw it in your kid's glove box, throw it in your glove box.
Yep.
It could be like a police officer you drive by that's overdosing.
You
You
never
happen to
know.
have a kit. So
Yeah.
it could be your kid's best friend.
Yeah.
So, or your own kid.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
to be prepared.
Carry the Narcan, you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.